Okay, so we have two sets of ancient scrolls, both from Egypt. Both look like they're holding some kind of ancient secret. But what's actually inside them? Well, they could not be more different. One's a guide to the afterlife, and the other? It's basically a how-to manual for an ancient craftsman.
You know, when we dig up a text that's thousands of years old, what are we actually reading? Is it this perfect, clear window into their world? Or is it more like a mirror, just reflecting our own hopes and expectations right back at us?
So on one hand, we've got these papyri. They became a sacred scripture, a foundational religious text. And on the other, a collection of super practical, almost commercial recipes. Let's dig into how these two documents really make us question what we think we know about history.
All right, first up, a story that kicks off in the 1830s. It involves a set of ancient Egyptian papyri and a man who was convinced he could unlock their divine message.
So back in 1835, Joseph Smith, who you know as the founder of the Latter-day Saint movement, gets his hands on these Egyptian scrolls. He looks at them and announces that they're the actual long-lost writings of the biblical patriarch Abraham. His translation of them becomes a canonical scripture for the church known as the Book of Abraham.
Now, for more than 100 years, the original papyri were basically lost to history. It was a huge mystery. But then, in the 1960s, some fragments were rediscovered. And for the first time, scholars could take a direct look. So, what did they find?
Well, what the scholars found was pretty surprising. The consensus among Egyptologists was that these fragments weren't the writings of Abraham at all. Instead, they were identified as a collection of really common Egyptian funerary texts, parts of the Book of the Dead and a related text, the Book of the Breathings. All of it was designed to help a deceased person get to the afterlife safely.
And this brings up a really common misconception. The Book of the Dead wasn't a single fixed book. You should think of it more like a customizable playlist for the great beyond. A person would basically pick and choose the spells and hymns they wanted on their scroll to make sure their journey went smoothly.
In the actual content, it really reveals a world of, magical thinking and practical concerns for the afterlife. For instance, one of the spells found was a charm to prevent a dead woman from having to eat dung or drink urine in the necropolis. Yes, you heard that right. It was a very real, very practical concern for an ancient Egyptian, but a world away from the stories of Abraham.
Okay, let's switch gears to our second set of scrolls. Around the exact same time those other texts turned up, another collection, this one written in Greek, was found near Thebes. And just like the first set, everyone initially thought they were holding some kind of mystical, powerful secrets.
Right, so because these scrolls had recipes for working with metals, the people who first saw them thought, aha, we found the lost books of the ancient alchemists. The secret manuals for turning lead into gold. They were seen as this missing link between chemistry and magic.
But then you actually read the recipes, and they sound less like a magic spell and a lot more like something from a modern-day workshop manual. I mean, look at this one from the Leiden Papyrus. It's a clear, step-by-step guide for making an alloy. But notice that last line. The goal isn't to make real silver. It's to create an imitation so good it will deceive even the artisans. They're not trying to hide it.
And this quote from historian John Maxon Stillman just nails it. The people who wrote these recipes, these operators, they knew exactly what they were doing. They weren't self-deluded mystics. They were practical crafters, probably just trying to make a living.
So when you put it all together, recipes for fake gold, fake gemstones, special dyes for wool, gold-colored ink, the picture becomes crystal clear. This wasn't a book of mystical alchemy. It was a handbook for an ancient artisan's workshop, pure and simple.
So, let's put these two stories side by side now. We've got two sets of ancient papyri, and both were initially seen as holding these profound, almost magical secrets. But what they really held was something else entirely.
The contrast here is just so stark, right? One set is all about religion, the afterlife, and salvation, written in Egyptian with magical spells. The other is all about commerce and craft, written in Greek with recipes for making convincing fakes. It's like we found a snapshot of two completely different ancient worlds.
And if you just break down the Leiden Papyrus by the numbers, it's undeniable. The vast majority of the recipes, about 75 of them, are for creating metals and alloys. The rest are focused on things like inks, dyes, and minerals.
This is a workshop handbook through and through.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? What do these two very different stories really tell us about how we should read the past?
Ultimately, what these stories show us is that an ancient text really has at least two lives. There's the life its author intended for it, and then there's the life its reader finds in it centuries later. Both of these papyri were first seen through the eyes of their modern readers. One group was searching for divine scripture, the other was looking for the secrets of alchemy.
And that kind of leaves us with this one big question. Every time we engage with a piece of the past, how much of what we think we're seeing is a true discovery of their world, and how much is just a reflection of our own hopes, our own beliefs, our own expectations? It's something to think about. Thanks for watching.